Hello everyone, in this week's video I'm going to be showing how to draw 4 different manga girl eyes. Many of you have been asking me to make more videos on eyes. I have made videos on eyes in the past, but many of them are kind of old, so I thought I should make an updated video. This video is also different because I'll be showing different ways you can fill in the irises. You can mix and match these eye shapes and irises however you want to. Also, I drew light sketches of the eyes before recording. That way I wouldn't be spending so much of the time in the video on the rough sketch and refining the shape. Anyways, let's get started. I start by drawing a line that is the shape I want the eye to be. I draw a very curving line for the top eyelash line. Next I draw a curving line for the lower eyelash line. Now I thicken the top eyelash line by drawing another line that follows the shape of the first one. The line gets thinner at the ends. Then I fill in what I drew. I also make the lower eyelash line thicker. It also gets thinner at the ends. Next I draw an oval for the iris. I turn my paper so that's easier for my wrist to draw. Next I draw an oval for the highlight. I will leave the inside of this oval white. The highlight will make the eye look shiny. I draw another large oval for the pupil and fill it in completely. Next is the shading. In the iris, I try to create a gradient that is darker at the top and gets lighter towards the bottom. At the top, I press pretty hard on the pencil, and as the pencil moves down, I lighten the pressure. I also add more shading around the edge of the iris because I feel like it gives it more depth. I smudge the pencil graphite a little bit with my finger to blend it out. I often hear you're not supposed to use your finger, but I do it anyways. I draw some lines for the eyelid and some curving pointed shapes for the eyelashes. Lastly, I add a little bit of shading to the white part of the eye. I like to add a little shading there because I like how it makes the eye look. This eye is now finished, so let's move on to the next one. The process for this eye and the first eye will be pretty similar. This eye isn't as rounded. It goes up, slants down, and then curves in. I often describe this as being kind of shaped like a hill. The lower lash line is slightly curved. Now I thicken the eyelash lines. I draw an oval for the iris. Now we'll start filling in the iris. Instead of drawing an oval for the highlight, I'm going to draw a blob kind of shape. I also add a second highlight in the lower part of the eye. Next I draw an oval for the pupil, but instead of completely filling it in, I'm going to create a gradient in it. The shading will be dark at the top and around the edge. It'll get lighter towards the bottom. I add shading to the rest of the iris. I repeat the process I did for the first eye. Next I draw the eyelid and the eyelashes. I add some more eyelashes to this eye than I did the previous eye. Lastly, I add some shading to the white part of the eye. We are now finished with this eye, so we'll move on to the third one. This eye is very different from the previous two. It's wider than it is tall. It is also going to be very pointed. For the top eyelash, I draw lines that slightly curve up, down, and then kind of back up again. I then create a point that hooks back in. This time the bottom eyelash is very curved. Next, I draw curving lines for the iris. I'm going to make these lines dark and pretty thick. I make them slightly thicker at the top. For the highlight, I draw a narrow oval. This time for the pupil, I'm drawing a curving shape that tapers at each end, instead of drawing a whole oval. Next, I draw some lines that come from the top. They curve around the pupil and taper towards the ends. I'm not totally sure what these lines are supposed to be, but I see them sometimes in eye designs and they look kinda cool. Instead of shading the iris, I'm going to shade the white part of the eye and the iris with one shadow. I draw a line going across where I want the shadow to stop, and then I lightly add the shading. This kinda makes the eye look really cold. I then add the eyelid. I'm going to add many eyelashes and make them long and very pointed. This eye is finished, so now let's move on to the last eye. For this last eye, I decided to use a mechanical pencil because I wanted my lines to be really thin. I find it easier to create thin lines with a mechanical pencil. I draw a curving line and then the shape of the eye kinda comes to a point. This point isn't as extreme as the previous eye. Next, I draw another line that follows the shape of the first line, but I also add in the shape for the eyelashes as I go. This time I'm not going to fill in the eyelash lines, I'm going to leave them white. I sometimes see this when looking at different eyes, especially for characters that have light colored hair or that look really angelic or mysterious. I repeat the same process for the lower eyelash line. Now I draw two curving lines for the iris. I lightly draw an oval for where I want the highlight to be. For this eye, I'm not going to draw a pupil. I start by lightly shading the iris. I turn my paper sideways so it's easier to shade. I make the shading get lighter as I move down. For where the pupil would be, I add more shading. This kinda gives the effect that there's a pupil, but there isn't one. This time I'm going to add more shading underneath the upper eyelash line. This will help separate the eyelash from the rest of the eye. So here are the 4 different eyes I drew in this video. If you want me to make more videos on drawing different kinds of eyes, please let me know and give this video a thumbs up so I know you want to see more videos like this. Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. I hope it was helpful and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!